COVID has done damage to us. Personally, collectively, the church is hurting. Now, I don't think that we're not going to make a comeback. I don't think it's irreparable at all. But COVID has made us feel comfortable now. And it's time for us to reevaluate. It's always time for us to reevaluate. It's time for us to reevaluate how much fear we ought to have of COVID and how much we should avoid each other within this fear. Look, there are so many people who are affected by this in so many different ways. I'm talking in more general terms. I'm sure you have your specific cases, your specific needs, and your own opinions about this. I just want to give you Bible, and I want to encourage you and also, again, hold us accountable. I'm Zach. This is The Average Christian, a project simply about what it means to have a relationship with God and how do I live that out in everyday practical terms, and also about accountability. So this one is accountability. We need to look at ourselves and say, maybe being at home all the time and away from our brethren is not a good idea. In fact, I know it isn't. There is reason. I know that you've heard for church attendance, and I'm not even talking about that, but for church attendance and things like that, you've heard somebody spout Hebrews 10 and verse 25. There are reasons why that passage is there, and it's to keep us together. And we cannot do this alone. In fact, to be a part of the church, that word in the Greek means the assembled. It has different meanings or a variety that come into to play here. But what we call church, we think of maybe a building, we think of maybe just the people, but in the word itself is the assembled. So it means we get together. Now, I know people want to play with it and say, well, we're assembled if it's just our family, or we're assembled if it's, two of us, and they take a passage out of context about where two of us are gathered and so forth. The idea is for us to not neglect gathering together. And here's why. In verse 23, here's the positive. I'm going to give you a positive and negative here. The Bible is, in fact, in Hebrews 10:23, let us hold fast the confession of our hope without wavering. That's the idea, to hold on to this and to not be tossed back and forth by Satan, for he who promised is faithful. Let us consider. Now, this is what I need to hold my faith and my hope, but I also need to see what I can do to serve you and help you in your effort to hold on. Let us consider how to stir up one another to love and good works. You can't do that effectively while always being away from everybody. I know we have so much technology at our disposal, but nothing is ever going to take the place of verse 25. Not neglecting to meet together, as is the habit of some, but encouraging one another, and all the more as you see the day drawing near, because it's going to get more difficult. Judgment is coming. We've got to be ready. We've got to hold on to this. And my job is to help you, and yours is to help me. And we can't do that while we're always so separated. I know the conversations that may come up about, meeting, they met in their homes. In the first century, that's true. They didn't meet in buildings like we do. Now it's an expediency, and we could go back to homes and so forth. But the idea still is getting together about as brethren. I know even families can allow each other to get away with things. In fact, we probably give more rope to our families and probably hurt each other more at times because we all sort of fall away or become disinterested, and we don't hold each other in check. And we all think a lot alike, our families and our homes. We need to be around other families and other brethren who think a little differently, who have different strengths and weaknesses, who can challenge us as a family. Stop using family and home as an excuse to stay away, which frankly, brethren, some of it is. Some of it is just a cop-out. I know brethren who are talking about not getting out and going to worship because of their fears, but still go to Walmart, still go to whatever store, will go everywhere else in public. And I saw a post one time that's true. If you are only quarantining from church, you're doing it wrong. If you're that afraid, then stay home, period. If there is a necessity, if there's a need for you to be out, it's this. And it's time we reevaluate personally and collectively. Pray for our elders. By the way, I want to throw that in. Pray for our elders who are getting so much pressure about what to do and what not to do, and so many opinions. And there's not necessarily a right or wrong, except to just shut all this down and never do it again, maybe. But pray for them and consider, how am I going to do what the Lord says here for this positive part? Now, the other side of it, real quick, or what you hope is real quick, The other side of this is verse 26. If you decide to neglect gathering together, and I'm seeing evidence of this, I'm watching this happen to my brethren, sadly enough. If we go on sinning deliberately after receiving the knowledge of the truth, there no longer remains a sacrifice for sins, but a fearful expectation of judgment and a fury of fire that will consume the adversaries. Anyone who has set aside the law of Moses dies without mercy on the evidence of 2 or 3 witnesses. How much worse punishment do you think will be deserved by the one who has trampled underfoot the Son of God, has profaned the blood of the covenant by which he was sanctified, and has outraged the Spirit of grace? For we know him who said, vengeance is mine, I will repay. And again, the Lord will judge his people. It is a fearful thing to fall into the hands of the living God. And I'm telling you, you are playing into the devil's hands if you are allowing yourself to stay separate from your brethren, maybe because of an excuse. Maybe it is a genuine fear. I know there are people out there with genuine fears. And I know there are people out there with an excuse who had weak faith to begin with and now have a built-in reason because they can pull it up on their television screen. I'm grateful for everybody streaming their worship service. But now they're acting like a shut-in and incapable. And that needs to be checked. You and I need to think about what matters most, how much we need to be together. I could go on and on talking about this. You see the positives, the benefits here of why we don't need to neglect gathering together. And I'm going to also say this real quick. I know this video is getting long, but real quick. If you go to church every time the doors are open, that was for many people a measure of faith. Well, they're there every time the doors are open. Well, that's a 4-hour-a-week test. And you don't pass as a dad for 4 hours a week. You don't pass as a husband for 4 hours a week. And you don't pass as gathering together. If that's the only time you're ever around your brethren is just in these buildings, in these confines. So it's not just about going into the church, quote unquote, church building. It's also about getting into each other's homes, spending time together, and not being so isolated. I don't care what the CDC says anymore. They are propagating fear in many ways. And I don't want to lose my soul worried about my physical health, and I don't want you to as well. So yeah, if you stay home, it may well destroy you. And I hope that you'll consider not neglecting this important aspect. You see the positives and negatives, and please go back and study it, reconsider, think about what matters most. Thank you for being with us today. Those watching on YouTube, we appreciate you being here. And if you haven't already, please subscribe, hit the like button and the notification bell to help support the channel. Also, if you want to see what was released last time, it's up here in this corner. And in this corner, you'll see what YouTube recommends. For our podcast listeners, we are grateful for you being here. We're asking the same of you to subscribe, rate, and review to help the channel. Everyone consider supporting this work by going to theaveragechristian.net/Patreon. See how you can be an online missionary as well, or at least a partner in this effort, and share this with other people.